My phone lit up. Still stuck at mom's for dinner, love you. I looked up, he was 3 tables away, slipping a wax-sealed envelope to a woman in red. I texted, enjoy mom. He whispered, please. I replied, check your accounts. Okay, let me tell you a story. One tiny lie, whispered in a text message, is all it takes to absolutely shatter your entire world. One moment, I thought I was meeting my husband's mom for dinner, and the next, I was watching him sell me out at a velvet-lined booth, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. You know, my name's Elena Lee, and if life in the Appalachian hollers taught me anything before I clawed my way into a corner office, it's this. Never let a predator know you're bleeding. You stand still. You quiet your breathing. And you wait for the shot. I'm 35, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Northline Strategies. My job? It's seeing the cracks in a corporate structure before the whole damn building collapses. I fix things. I manage crises. I organize chaos into profitable spreadsheets. But sitting there, in the dim glow of the Hawthorne room, staring at the empty seat across from me, I didn't realize I was the one about to collapse. I'd arrived at 7 p.m. sharp. My client, some nervous rep from a tech firm looking to lobby the city council, bailed at 7:05. Unprofessional, sure, but in my line of work, people get cold feet. I should have been annoyed. Instead, I felt this weird, almost guilty sense of relief. It had been a brutal week. 5 days straight, finalizing a $10 million bid with the city partners. I'd audited 3 years of financial records, slept maybe 4 hours a night. I was exhausted, down to my very bones. So, I decided to stay. I ordered a glass of Cabernet, the kind that costs $25 a pop, and just sank into that plush leather banquette. The restaurant was dim, smelling of truffle oil and expensive perfume, the air thick with the low hum of deals being made and affairs being hidden. I took a sip of the wine, letting the dark fruit settle on my tongue, and for just 1 second, I closed my eyes. Just 1 second of peace. Then my phone buzzed on the white tablecloth. The screen lit up with a message from Ethan. My husband. The man I'd shared my bed, my bank accounts, and my deepest secrets with for 7 years. Stuck at mom's for dinner, it read. She made that meatloaf you like. Sorry I'm running late. Miss you. Love you. A soft smile touched my lips. Ethan's mom, Barbara, was this sweet, overbearing woman who lived 40 minutes south of the city. Her meatloaf? God, it was terrible. Dry, oversalted. But I always ate it, just to be polite. Ethan knew that. It was an inside joke, a little touch of intimacy in a digital message. I picked up my phone, ready to type a witty reply about saving me a piece of the burnt crust. That's when I looked up. The Hawthorne room has this tiered seating, right? It gives you privacy, but you can still see the whole floor. My eyes just drifted past the rim of my wine glass, scanning the room out of pure habit. 1, 2, 3 tables forward. And the smile on my face? It didn't fade. It vanished. Instantly, utterly severed by the image before me. Ethan was there. He wasn't 40 minutes south at his mother's house. He was 30 feet away from me. He was wearing the navy blazer I'd ironed for him that very morning. I remembered smoothing the lapel, picking a stray lint thread off his shoulder, kissing his cheek before he left for what he called a site visit. He looked handsome, relaxed, and he was holding hands with a woman in a red dress. I knew her. Not personally, but I knew the type. Striking, dark hair cascading over her shoulders, a posture that just screamed entitlement. Marissa Vale. I vaguely recognized her from Industry Mixers, a consultant of some sort, the kind who floats between firms without a clear portfolio. My heart slammed against my ribs. A singular, violent thud. The entire noise of the restaurant just dropped away, leaving me in a vacuum where the only thing that existed was table 14. If it had just been dinner, maybe I could have rationalized it. Maybe a surprise meeting he hadn't wanted to worry me about. Maybe I was hallucinating from sheer sleep deprivation. But then, Ethan leaned in. And it wasn't a business lean. It was a lean of pure, unadulterated familiarity. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering on her jawline. The intimacy of that gesture was a physical blow. It hit me harder than any slap. But it was what happened next that turned my shock into ice. Ethan reached into his briefcase, the leather one I'd bought him for his promotion 3 years ago, and pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope. It was heavy. I could tell by the way it hit the table. This wasn't a greeting card. It wasn't a gift certificate. On the back, sealing the flap, was a perfect circle of red wax. A wax seal. It looked archaic, ceremonial, and utterly out of place for a casual affair. He slid the envelope across the white tablecloth toward Marissa. She didn't look surprised. She looked hungry. She placed her hand over the envelope, her manicured nails tapping against the paper. Then she looked up at him and smiled. It was a conspiratorial smile. A smile that said, asterisk, asterisk, we won. Asterisk, asterisk, they looked like two people who had just pulled off a heist. I sat there, frozen. My husband was lying to me about where he was. He was with another woman. And he was handing her something that looked like a contract, sealed like a secret pact. My lungs just refused to draw air. The betrayal was a physical thing, a jagged stone lodging itself in my throat. I wanted to march over there. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pick up that $25 glass of wine and shatter it against the side of his head. The Appalachian girl in me wanted blood. She wanted to make a scene that would have security dragging us all out. But Elena Lee, the COO of Northline Strategies, does not make scenes. Elena Lee gathers data. I forced myself to breathe. One breath in, one breath out. Pushed the nausea down. My hands were trembling, but I locked my elbows against the table to steady them, unlocked my phone, and opened the camera app. I zoomed in. The lens caught them perfectly. I adjusted the frame. I needed context. I needed proof that couldn't be argued away in some gaslighting session later that night. I widened the shot to include the distinct Art Deco clock on the far wall, 7:52 p.m. The table number stand. And then I focused on their faces, Ethan's adoring gaze, Marissa's triumphant grin, and that damning cream envelope resting between their hands. Click, I took 3 photos. One wide. One close-up on their faces. One close-up on the envelope. Then I opened my messages. I stared at his last text, stuck at Mom's. I attached the photo, the one where he was looking at Marissa like she was the center of his universe. I typed a single line, enjoy dinner with Mom. And I hit send. I watched him. It took maybe 10 seconds. His phone was sitting on the table, face up. It lit up. He glanced down, casually at first, probably expecting me to say, okay, honey. Drive safe. I saw his body stiffen. It was instantaneous. Like an electric shock running through his spine. He snatched the phone up. He stared at the screen. The color drained from his face so fast, he looked like a corpse in a navy blazer. He looked up. Panic flashed in his eyes. His head whipped around, scanning the room, wide and terrified. I did not hide. I did not duck. I sat perfectly straight, my spine fused with steel. His eyes found me. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the 3 tables of separation. The noise of the restaurant rushed back in, the clinking of silverware, the laughter, the jazz music, but it sounded distant. Underwater. Ethan's mouth opened, forming my name, but no sound came out. Marissa followed his gaze, turning around in her chair. She saw me. Her smile faltered, but she didn't look scared. She looked annoyed. I picked up my wine glass. I raised it in a silent toast to my husband. Then I set it down unfinished. I stood up. My legs felt hollow, but they held me. I walked to the waiter station, handed the maitre d' my credit card, and said, add 20% for the service. I'm leaving now. Is everything all right, ma'am? He asked, sensing the tension. Everything is clear, I said. I turned and walked toward the exit. I did not run. I walked with the same measured pace I used when entering a boardroom to fire a negligent manager. My heels clicked against the parquet floor. A rhythmic countdown to the end of my marriage. Elena! Elena, wait. I heard the scrape of a chair being shoved back. Heavy footsteps pounded behind me. I pushed through the heavy oak doors and stepped out into the cool night air. The valet was already moving toward the key stand, but tonight I'd parked my car myself in the front lot. Elena! Ethan grabbed my elbow just as I reached the driver's side door of my sedan. His grip was tight, desperate. I spun around. He was breathless, his face shiny with sweat. Baby, please. It's not what it looks like. Let me explain, please. Just stop for a second. I looked up at his eyes. The eyes I'd trusted for 7 years. The eyes that had looked at me this morning with false love while he planned a date with another woman. Don't touch me, I said. My voice wasn't loud. It was barely a whisper. But it was cold enough to freeze the air between us. Ethan flinched as if he'd been burned. He dropped his hand. Elena, she's a client. It's a work thing. I lied because I knew you'd be jealous. And I didn't want to fight. That envelope is just a proposal. Please. You have to believe me. A client, I repeated. And the text about your mother? Was that a proposal too? He stammered, his mouth opening, closing like a fish on a hook. I panicked. I just didn't want to ruin your night. You didn't ruin my night, Ethan, I said, opening my car door. You ruined your life. Elena, where are you going? Come home. We can talk about this at home. I am not going home, I said. Because I don't know who lives there anymore. I slid into the driver's seat and slammed the door, locking it immediately. He banged on the window, mouthing, please, and I love you, but I backed out without looking at him again. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I navigated the city streets, the neon lights blurring into streaks of red and gold. I didn't drive to our house in the suburbs. I didn't drive to my best friend's apartment. I needed neutral ground. I needed a fortress. I pulled into the underground garage of the Rivergate Hotel. Impersonal. Secure. I parked in a dark corner. I sat there for 5 minutes, just breathing, listening to the engine cool down. I did not cry. Crying was for later. Crying was for when the damage was assessed. Right now, I was in damage control mode. I checked in at the front desk. Room 304. Paid with my personal credit card, the one Ethan didn't have access to. Up in the room, the silence was deafening. It smelled of industrial cleaner and starch. I threw my bag on the bed and double-locked the door. Engaged the deadbolt. Checked the peephole. Then I sat down at the small desk by the window. I opened my laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dark room, illuminating my face. I inserted the memory card from my dash cam, connected my phone. Transferred the 3 photos I'd taken at the restaurant. I created a new folder on my encrypted drive. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time. My husband had betrayed me. He had lied about his location. He had met a woman named Marissa Vale. He had handed her a sealed document. This was not a one-off. I hit enter. The file saved. And with that click, the wife died. And the investigator was born. The door to room 304 clicked shut, engaging the heavy deadbolt with a sound that felt absolutely final. I stood in the center of the room for a moment, listening to the hum of the air conditioning. It was the only sound in my world. The silence should have been terrifying. But it wasn't. It was clarifying. I sat down at the generic wooden desk and opened my laptop again. The file evidence_1 was staring at me from the desktop. I turned off the part of my brain that was a wife. I turned off the part that remembered our wedding vows. The way he laughed at bad movies. The warmth of his back against my chest at night. That woman was a liability right now. Instead, I activated the chief operating officer. When a project is failing, you don't weep over the lost potential. You audit the books. You find the leak. You stop the bleeding. I started with the photos. Uploaded them to a secure cloud server Ethan didn't know existed, a backup account I used for sensitive company data. Then I copied them to an external hard drive I kept in my laptop bag. Redundancy was the first rule of data preservation. I opened the metadata of the photos. 7:52 p.m. Location: the Hawthorne Room. Next, I opened a spreadsheet. Labeled the columns: date, time, location, stated activity, actual activity, financial impact. I logged the first date, October 12th. Time: 7:52 p.m. Stated activity: dinner with mother. Actual activity: dinner with Marissa Vale. Financial impact: pending. Then I logged into our joint bank account. Ethan and I had always maintained a joint checking for household expenses and separate accounts for personal spending. We were both high earners. We trusted each other. Or rather, I had trusted him. I'd been so busy managing the finances of a multi-million-dollar corporation that I'd put my domestic audit on autopilot. I downloaded the transaction history for the last 12 months, exported it to Excel, and applied a filter. I started looking for outliers. And there they were. Small things at first. A charge for $150 at a steakhouse in the city on a Tuesday 3 months ago. I checked my calendar for that date. Ethan had told me he was working late on the Henderson account. I highlighted the row in yellow. A $300 charge at the Ritz-Carlton in Lake Oconee. That was a 2-hour drive away. The date was a Friday in August. I remembered that weekend. He said he was going on a fishing trip with his college friends. I checked the transaction details. The bill included room service for 2. I highlighted the row in orange. Then I saw the jewelry store. Gilded Lily Fine Gems, $1,200. September 4th. My birthday is in February. I had never received a gift from that store. My stomach twisted. A cold knot of nausea trying to rise. But I swallowed it down with a gulp of tepid bottled water. Asterisk focus, Elena. Just the numbers. Asterisk, then I found the pattern that made my blood run cold. It was a recurring transfer. On the 15th of every month, for the past 10 months, a sum of $2,500 was electronically transferred. The recipient was listed simply as VOC LLC. I copied the string of text and pasted it into the State Business Registry search engine. Vale Orchard Consulting. Vale. Marissa Vale. I sat back in the stiff hotel chair, the screen blurring slightly. It wasn't just an affair. He was funding her. $2,500 a month was $25,000 over 10 months. That was a down payment on a car. That was rent. That was my money. Our money. Flowing directly into the pocket of the woman in the red dress. But why an LLC? Why not just Venmo? Why make it look like a business transaction? I opened a new tab for our insurance portal. If he was moving money, he might be moving other things. I navigated to the profile section. Everything looked normal until I checked the correspondence history. 3 months ago, a request had been submitted to change the mailing address for sensitive documents. Not to our home address. Not to his office. It was changed to a P.O. box. At a Pac Mail Center in a strip mall on the west side of town. I stared at the address. Box 419. He was diverting mail. That meant there were credit cards I didn't know about. Notices I wasn't supposed to see. He had built a firewall between his life and mine. Brick by brick. Document by document. While I was busy ironing his shirts. I didn't sleep that night. I spent the hours cross-referencing toll road charges with his business trips. I built a timeline that was irrefutable. By the time the sun began to bleed gray light through the heavy hotel curtains, I had a dossier. At 7 a.m., I called my assistant. I have a personal emergency, I said, my voice steady, professional. I'll be offline for 48 hours. Cancel the strategy meeting. Tell the team to proceed with the audit based on my last notes. I didn't offer details. In the corporate world, personal emergency usually meant a death or a divorce. I suppose this was a bit of both. I showered in the hotel bathroom, scrubbing my skin until it was red, as if I could wash away the feeling of being a fool. I had no clean clothes. I put the same suit back on, the fabric feeling heavy and contaminated. I left the hotel and drove to a nearby Target. Bought the essentials, as if I were a refugee fleeing a war zone. 5 pairs of cotton underwear, a pack of white t-shirts, yoga pants, a toothbrush, deodorant, a cheap burner phone. I paid cash. I didn't want Ethan tracking my location through credit card alerts. I returned to the hotel, changed into the cheap clothes, and sat on the edge of the bed. I felt lighter. Stripped down. I was in evacuation mode. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Talia Brooks. Talia had been my roommate in college, now a ferocious marketing executive who treated life like a contact sport. Meet me tonight. Rivergate Hotel, room 304. Do not ask questions over the phone. Talia arrived at 6 p.m. She didn't knock. She pounded. When I opened the door, she took one look at me, the cheap t-shirt, the dark circles under my eyes, the laptop surrounded by notepads, and stepped inside, locking the door behind her. She placed a bottle of vodka on the desk. "Talk," she said. I talked. I walked her through the dinner. The text. The woman. The envelope. The transfers to Vale Orchard Consulting. The hidden P.O. box. Talia didn't gasp. She didn't hug me. She listened with the intensity of a predator watching prey. When I finished, she poured 2 glasses of vodka, neat, in the hotel tumblers. "He's not just cheating," Talia said, her voice low. "He's building an exit strategy. The money transfers to an LLC? That's asset diversion. He's funneling marital funds out before he files, so he can claim he's broke." "I know," I said. He looked happy, Talia. When he handed her that envelope, he looked like they had just pulled off a bank heist. Talia swirled her glass. She looked me dead in the eye. "Elena, listen to me carefully. Most women in your position want an apology. They want to know why she's better. They want closure." She leaned forward. Asterisk, asterisk, do you want justice or do you want peace? Asterisk, asterisk. I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen. I looked at the sum. $25,000. I thought about the lie about his mother's meatloaf. "I want the truth," I said. "I want to know exactly what was in that envelope. And then, once I have the facts, I will decide how much it's going to cost him." Talia nodded. "Good. Then you need a shark, not a mediator. You need Diane Carver." The name was legendary in the city. Diane Carver was a divorce attorney who cost $600 an hour and was rumored to be able to find a hidden nickel in a haystack. They said she read financial statements like poetry and could smell a hidden asset from 3 counties away. "I'll call her," I said. "Do it now," Talia said. "Leave a message. You have a complex financial fraud case wrapped inside a divorce. That will get her attention." After Talia left, promising to check on my house without letting Ethan see her, I sat in the dim light. A strange calm settled over me. I had a plan. I had a team. My phone buzzed. It was Ethan. I stared at the screen, my heart rate spiking for a fraction of a second before I forced it down. "Hope you are okay," the text read. "I am worried about you. I am taking Mom to her heart specialist tomorrow morning. So, I will be out of pocket until noon. Please call me when you can." I read the text twice. Taking Mom to her heart specialist tomorrow. I turned to my laptop. Opened my personal calendar. I managed the family schedule because Ethan was incapable of remembering birthdays or anniversaries. I scrolled to the current week. Ethan's mother, Barbara, was a snowbird. She spent October through March in a condo in Sarasota, Florida. I had booked her flight myself 3 weeks ago. I had the confirmation number in my email. She was not here. She was 1,000 miles away. Ethan wasn't taking his mother to the doctor. He was using his mother, a woman who loved me, a woman I had cared for when she was sick, as an alibi. And he was sloppy. So arrogant, so sure of his control over me that he didn't even bother to check if his lie was physically possible. He assumed I was too emotional, too broken to check the flight logs. He was wrong. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot of his text. I took a screenshot of his mother's flight confirmation. Saved them both into the folder. Evidence_2. I closed the laptop. I was not just a wife scorned anymore. I was a witness building a case. And tomorrow, I was going to see Diane Carver to find out how to bury him with it. Diane Carver's office didn't look like a place where marriages went to die. It looked like a place where corporations were dismantled. Located on the 42nd floor of a glass tower in the financial district, it smelled of espresso and intimidatingly expensive leather. There were no boxes of tissues on the desk. No inspirational quotes about healing or new beginnings. There was only a massive slab of polished marble and a woman who looked like she could cut a diamond with her gaze. Diane, in her 50s, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, didn't offer me coffee. She held out her hand for the file. I handed over the folder. Inside were the printouts of the photos, the spreadsheet of the transactions, the text messages, and the screenshot of Ethan's mother's flight confirmation. Diane put on a pair of thick-rimmed glasses. She flipped through the pages in silence. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the hard drive in her computer. She spent a long time looking at the photo of the wax-sealed envelope. She spent even longer looking at the transaction history for Vale Orchard Consulting. Finally, she closed the folder and took off her glasses. She looked at me. Do you still love him? The question surprised me. I opened my mouth to answer, to explain the complexity of 7 years of history. But she held up a hand. Actually, strike that, she said sharply. I don't care. That's a question for a therapist. I charge $600 an hour, Elena. You are not paying me to manage your heart. You are paying me to secure your future. So, let's talk about the only thing that matters in this room. Leverage. I sat up straighter. I want to know what's going on. You already know what's going on, Diane said, tapping the folder. Your husband is having an affair. But he's not just sleeping with her. He's investing in her. This LLC, Vale Orchard Consulting, is less than a year old. The payments are regular. He's treating this woman like a business expense. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Now, the real questions. Do you have children? No, I said. Good. Custody battles are messy and expensive. Whose name is on the house? Both of ours, I replied. We bought it 5 years ago. Retirement accounts? He has a 401k. I have a diversified portfolio and company stock options. Debts. Just the mortgage. We pay off our, she corrected. If he's diverting mail to a P.O. box, he could have open lines of credit in your name or joint name, without you seeing the statements. We see it all the time. The husband buys the girlfriend a condo, and the wife ends up paying the interest. My stomach turned over, but I kept my face impassive. What's the plan? Diane stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. 3 prongs. First, we separate the finances. Legally. I will file a motion to freeze assets to prevent dissipation. That means he cannot move another dime to Miss Vale without a judge asking why. Second, we build the case for adultery and financial misconduct. In this state, fault still matters for alimony and asset division. If we prove he spent marital funds on an affair, we can claw that money back from his share of the estate. She turned back to me. Third, and this is the most critical, we check for identity theft. You need to lock down your credit reports today. Right now. He wouldn't go that far, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. He lied about his mother having a heart condition, Diane said coldly. A man who uses his mother's health as a cover story has no bottom. Do not underestimate him. And do not underestimate what he will do when he realizes he's cornered. She sat back down. He's going to flip the script, Elena. When you serve him papers, he will not apologize. He will attack. He will tell everyone that you are the problem. He will say you are cold, work-obsessed, neglectful. He might even try to paint you as mentally unstable to justify his actions. He will try to get ahead of the story at your workplace. My workplace. I frowned. He doesn't work at Northline. Reputation travels, Diane said. Just be ready. She pushed a retainer agreement across the desk. It was $5,000 just to start. I signed it without hesitating. I need more than just the bank statements, I said, handing the pen back. I need to know what was in that envelope. It had a wax seal, Diane. It looked official. Diane nodded. She pressed a button on her intercom. Send Ronan in. The door opened and a man walked in. Ronan Shea didn't look like a private investigator from a noir movie. He looked like an overworked auditor. He was wearing a rumpled button-down shirt and carrying a tablet. He had the tired eyes of someone who had seen every variety of human deceit and found them all boring. Elena, this is Ronan, Diane said. He specializes in corporate fraud and forensic accounting. He traces money that doesn't want to be found. Ronan sat down next to me. He didn't shake hands. He looked at the photo of the envelope on Diane's desk. Wax seal, he muttered. Theatrical. Usually means a personal contract, or a deed, or a love letter from someone who thinks they're living in a 19th century novel. But given the money transfers, I'd bet on a contract. He looked at me. I can pull the filings for the LLC. I can run a background check on Marissa Vale. I can put a tracker on his car. If you authorize it, I can find out who she is, where she lives, and how long this has been going on. He paused, studying my face. But I need to know your tolerance. Some clients just want a summary. They want to know yes or no so they can sign the divorce papers. Other clients want every detail. They want to know what they ate, where they slept, and what color the sheets were. Don't care about the sheets, I said. I want to know the business. I want to know why he's paying her. I want to know what they're planning. If he's moving money, he's planning a future. I want to know what that future looks like. Ronan nodded. You want the ammunition. I want everything, I said. But it has to be usable. Admissible in court. No illegal wiretaps. No breaking and entering. I need a clean kill. Clean kills are my specialty, Ronan said. He tapped his tablet. I'll start with the LLC. Vale Orchard Consulting. It sounds like a shell company. I'll have a preliminary report for you in 24 hours. I stood up to leave. My legs felt steadier than they had the night before. I had a lawyer. I had an investigator. I was not just a victim anymore. I was a plaintiff. Elena, Diane called out as I reached the door. One more thing. Do not sleep with him. Do not let him move back into the bedroom. If you resume marital relations after discovering the affair, it can be argued that you condoned it. It weakens your case. Trust me, I said, my hand on the doorknob. That will not be a problem. I walked out of the building and into the bustling street. The city was alive with the lunchtime rush. People were shouting into phones, eating sandwiches on benches, living their normal, honest lives. I felt detached from them, like I was moving through a different dimension. I checked my watch. It was 1:30 in the afternoon. I had told my assistant I'd be offline, but habit forced me to check my work email. I pulled my phone out of my purse. There was a notification from the Northline Strategies internal server. It was marked high importance. Subject: Urgent City Partnership Strategy Meeting. External Consultant Introduction. I frowned. The city project was my deal. I had closed it. Why was there a strategy meeting without me? I opened the email. Team, due to the accelerated timeline of the Urban Development Initiative, the City Council has requested we bring in an independent compliance auditor to oversee the finalization of the contract. Please welcome our external partner who will be leading the transition phase. Meeting time, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Lead consultant, Marissa Vale, Vale Orchard Consulting. I stopped walking. People bumped into me, grumbling as they navigated around my frozen figure on the sidewalk, but I didn't feel them. I stared at the screen until the pixels seemed to burn into my retinas. Marissa Vale. The woman in the red dress. The woman taking my husband's money. She wasn't just a mistress. She wasn't just a random consultant he'd met at a bar. She was coming into Northline. She was coming into my company. She was taking over my project. The air left my lungs. The pieces slammed together in my mind with the force of a train wreck. The envelope. The wax seal. The deal they were celebrating. It wasn't just about their relationship. It was about this. Ethan knew the city project was my career-defining achievement. He knew every detail of it because I had told him. I had told him about the difficult council members. I had told him about the compliance hurdles. He had fed that information to her. He had coached her. He had funded her LLC so she would look legitimate enough to bid on the consulting contract. And now she was walking through the front door of my office to supervise my work. This was not a love affair. This was a hostile takeover. My hand shook as I held the phone. I felt a surge of nausea, followed immediately by a cold, white-hot rage. He wasn't just breaking my heart. He was trying to dismantle my life. He wanted to take my money, my marriage, and my career, and hand it all to her. I opened my messaging app. Found the thread with Diane Carver. I typed a single message, my fingers flying across the glass screen. We are not just divorcing him. We have to protect my career. She is in my building. I hit send. I pocketed the phone and looked up at the skyline. The sun was shining, but the world looked darker than it ever had before. I walked toward the parking garage, my heels striking the pavement like gunshots. The time for sadness was over. Now it was time for war. By the way, if you're still with me on this wild ride and want to hear more stories where chaos meets corporate espionage, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Walking back into the glass-walled lobby of Northline Strategies felt like stepping into a pressurized airlock. The world outside was messy, chaotic, filled with the debris of my marriage. But inside, the air was filtered, cool, and smelled of ambition. I swiped my badge at the turnstile. The little green light beeped, a sound of permission, of belonging. You belong here, I told myself. Asterisk, this is your kingdom. He's just a tourist. Asterisk, I took the elevator to the 30th floor. My face was a mask of perfectly applied foundation and neutral professionalism. I nodded to the junior analysts huddled by the coffee machine. They were talking about quarterly KPIs and a looming deadline for a logistics merger. Their stress was quaint. They were worried about spreadsheets. I was worried about an espionage campaign being run from my own bedroom. Elena, my assistant, Sarah, greeted me, standing up as I approached. You have the city partners meeting in 10 minutes, conference room B. And you look intense today. It is a big day, Sarah, I said, my voice steady. Do we have the updated files uploaded and ready on the server? Yes, ma'am. I walked into my office, placed my bag down, and checked my phone. No messages from Diane. No messages from Ronan. Just the silence of the hunt. I took a breath, smoothed my skirt, and headed to conference room B. The room was already full. The city partners, 3 men in gray suits representing the municipal council, were seated on the left. On the right sat the Northline team. And at the head of the table, standing next to the projector screen, was a woman in a sharp cream blazer and a pencil skirt. My step faltered for a fraction of a second, invisible to anyone who didn't know me. It was Marissa Vale. Up close, without the dim lighting of the Hawthorne room, she was even more striking. She had the kind of polished, aggressive beauty that worked well in boardrooms. She was arranging her notes with a confidence that made my skin crawl. Elena, the lead councilman, Mr. Henderson, said, standing to shake my hand. Good to see you. We were just getting started. I believe you haven't met our new external compliance monitor. He gestured to her. This is Marissa Vale. She's with Vale Orchard Consulting. The city has brought her in to audit the final phase of the project, just to ensure total transparency before we sign the $10 million grant. Marissa turned to me. She extended a hand. Her nails were painted a deep burgundy. A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Lee, she said. Her voice was smooth, professional, and laced with arsenic. She used my married name. She did it on purpose. Her eyes held no fear. I saw amusement. She knew exactly who I was. She knew she was standing in my office, auditing my work. Paid for by the city, but funded by my husband. I took her hand. It was cool and dry. Miss Vale, I said. I wasn't aware we needed external compliance. Northline's internal protocols are the gold standard. Fresh eyes never hurt, she said, withdrawing her hand. Especially on a project of this magnitude. We just want to make sure there are no conflicts of interest. The audacity was breathtaking. She was the conflict of interest. I took my seat. The meeting began. For 2 hours, I had to sit there and listen to the woman sleeping with my husband critique my operational strategy. She was smart. I had to give her that. She asked pointed questions about our vendor selection process, our data security measures. She was looking for cracks. She was looking for something she could use to leverage me out of my own deal. My phone, placed face down on the table, buzzed once. I glanced at it under the lip of the table. Ethan, I know you are angry. I will explain everything tonight. Just come home. I flipped the phone back over. I focused on Marissa. She was pointing at a slide about liability. If there is a data breach, she was saying, the liability falls squarely on the chief operating officer. We need to tighten the language here. She smiled at me. It was a predator's smile. I'm coming for your job, Elena, the smile said. And your husband is holding the door open for me. When the meeting ended, I walked straight back to my office and closed the door. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the cold mahogany of my desk until the tremor stopped. My computer pinged. It was an encrypted email from Ronan, the investigator. Subject: Update 11 a.m. Target: Ethan tracked to a co-working space on 4th Street, rented by the hour. He met with Subject B, Marissa, briefly before she left for your office. Afterward, Target met with an unidentified male, approximately 50 years old, wearing a cheap suit. Target handed over a leather document bag. I have photos. Identity of male is pending, but he looks like a fixer. Will update. I stared at the screen. Ethan was handing off documents to whom? My desk phone rang. It was Diane Carver. I have the report on the LLC, Diane said, no preamble. Vale Orchard Consulting was incorporated exactly 10 months ago. The registered agent is a generic service, but the funding source traces back to a routing number that matches your husband's consulting account, Elena. The timeline matches his business trips perfectly. Every time he went out of town, money moved into that account. She's here, Diane, I whispered. Marissa is in my office. She's the city's external auditor. That's the play, Diane said, her voice turning grim. They're not just stealing money. They're setting up a fall guy. If anything goes wrong with this city project, who takes the blame? I do, I said. I'm the CO. Exactly. And if the external auditor, who happens to be his girlfriend, finds irregularities in your work, they can fire you for cause. You lose your severance. You lose your stock options. And Ethan gets to divorce a disgrace instead of a powerhouse. A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I need to check the logs, I said. I have to go. I hung up and opened the internal network administration tool. As COO, I had high-level clearance. I navigated to the access logs for the Urban Development Initiative file server. I scrolled through the history. My access, 9 a.m. Sarah's access, 8:30 a.m. Then I saw it. User, admin remote. Time, 3:14 a.m. IP address, external. Someone had logged in remotely in the middle of the night. They had accessed the confidential financial projections. The sensitive data that, if leaked, would disqualify us from the city contract. I checked the IP address. It was a VPN bouncing through 3 different countries, but the entry point was local. They were planting something. Or they were stealing data to leak it so they could blame me for the breach. I didn't call IT support. That would create a ticket that Marissa could see. Instead, I called the head of internal security, a man named Marcus, who owed me a favor from when I saved his department from budget cuts 2 years ago. Marcus, I said when he answered. This is off the record. I need you to secure the access logs for the Urban Project server from last night. Do not flag it. Just copy them to a secure drive and bring it to me physically. Trouble? Marcus asked. Potential sabotage, I said. I need to prove that the 3:14 a.m. login wasn't me. Consider it done, he said. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of hypervigilance. I worked. I answered emails. I reviewed proposals. But every sense was tuned to the threat. I was fighting a war on 2 fronts, the domestic and the professional, and the enemy lines had merged. At 6 p.m., I packed my bag. I had the secure drive from Marcus in my purse. I walked down to the parking garage. Concrete and shadowed, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My heels echoed in the emptiness. I reached my car and unlocked it. Elena. The voice came from behind a concrete pillar. I spun around, phone already in my hand. Ethan stepped out. He looked terrible. His tie was loose, his hair messy, his eyes red-rimmed. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. How'd you get in here? I asked. My voice was ice. I still have my spouse badge, he said. You haven't revoked it yet. I'll fix that tomorrow, I said. I held up my phone. I am recording this, Ethan. Anything you say will be sent to my lawyer. He took a step forward, his hands out in a pleading gesture. Baby, please put the phone down. You're overreacting. You're blowing this whole thing up, and you don't even understand what's happening. I understand perfectly, I said. I met your business partner today. Marissa is very thorough. Ethan flinched. She's just doing her job. Listen to me, Elena. I'm doing this for us. I know it looks bad. I know the money looks bad, but I'm trying to secure a future where we don't have to work 80 hours a week. By stealing from me? I asked. By humiliating me? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. It's not stealing, it's leverage. We're going to flip this deal. Once the city signs, Marissa and I take a percentage of the consulting fee, and we walk away. We can pay off the mortgage. We can finally take that trip to Italy. I stared at him. He was delusional. He actually believed he could spin this. You are not doing this for us, I said. You are doing this for her. I saw the envelope, Ethan. I saw the way you touched her. That's part of the game, he insisted. I have to keep her happy to keep the deal moving. She has the connections with the city. Then he said it. The sentence that changed everything. He looked at me with genuine confusion, lowering his voice. Elena, don't ruin this deal. If you blow the whistle on Marissa, you blow the whistle on yourself. You signed the initial compliance reports. If she goes down for fraud, you go down for negligence. You benefit from this too. If you just stay quiet. I froze. He thought I was trapped. He thought he had me checkmated. He believed that because I was the COO, I was so entangled in the paperwork that I couldn't expose their scheme without destroying my own career. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was negotiating a hostage situation. And he thought I was the hostage. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and realized I was looking at a stranger. A weak, greedy stranger who had profoundly underestimated my confidence. I did not sign anything fraudulent, Ethan, I said softly. And I do not negotiate with terrorists. I opened my car door. Elena, he shouted, moving toward me. Get back. I snapped. Or I call security and have you dragged out in front of the cameras. He stopped. He saw the resolve in my eyes. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that the woman who ironed his shirts was gone. Talk to Diane Carver, I said. She is the only person you are allowed to speak to. I got in the car, locked the doors, and drove away. I watched him in the rearview mirror, standing alone under the flickering yellow light. A small man in a big, empty garage. As I merged onto the highway, heading back to the Rivergate Hotel, his words echoed in my mind. Asterisk, she has the connections with the city. Asterisk, Marissa Vale was a consultant. She didn't have power on her own. She needed a sponsor. Someone inside the city council or administration had to be feeding her the contract opportunities. Ethan was the financier, but he wasn't the political muscle. There was a third player. Marissa was betraying someone too. She had a partner. Or a fiancé. Or a husband. Someone she was hiding this affair from, just as Ethan hid it from me. Someone who gave her the appearance of legitimacy. I needed to find the other victim. If I could find the person Marissa Vale was cheating on, I wouldn't just have a divorce case. I would have an army. I picked up my burner phone and dialed Ronan. I need you to dig deeper on Marissa, I said. Not her business. Her personal life. Who is she living with? Who does she go home to when she isn't with my husband? Find him, Ronan. Find him tonight. The email from Ronan arrived at 10 p.m. It contained a single PDF file, titled Subject B Profile. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, the room illuminated only by the harsh blue light of the laptop screen. I opened the file. There was a photograph of a man. He had kind eyes, messy brown hair, and the sort of face that suggested he apologized when other people bumped into him. Name, Grant Hollowell. Occupation, forensic auditor, private practice. Relationship status, cohabiting with Marissa Vale for 3 years. Engaged. I stared at the screen. The irony was sharp enough to cut. My husband's mistress was engaged to a forensic auditor. We were both people who made a living finding the truth. Yet we were the two people sleeping in the dark. I called Diane. She answered on the first ring, her voice clear and alert, as if she never slept. I found him, I said. His name is Grant. He's a fiancé, not a husband. And he's an auditor. Perfect, Diane said. If he's an auditor, he will respect evidence. But listen to me closely, Elena. Do not go to him as a hysterical wife. Do not scream. Do not cry. You are a professional informing another professional of a liability. How do I tell him? Email, Diane advised. Give him the data. Let him process it in private. If you ambush him in person, he might deny it to save face. Give him the night to stare at the ceiling and realize his life is a lie. Then he will come to you. I hung up. I spent 40 minutes drafting the email. Deleted the first 3 versions. Too angry, too emotional. Finally, I settled. On fax. Subject, regarding Marissa Vale and Ethan Pierce. Mr. Hollowell, my name is Elena Lee. I believe our partners are involved in a relationship that affects both our lives and our finances. I do not want to cause a scene, but I believe you deserve to know the truth. Attached are 2 photographs taken at the Hawthorne Room on October 12th at 7:52 in the evening. Please note the time and the context. I have more information regarding financial irregularities involving a company called Vale Orchard Consulting. If you wish to discuss this, please let me know. I attached the photo of Ethan and Marissa holding hands and the photo of the envelope on the table. I didn't include the kiss. That was too cruel. For a first contact. I hit send. Then I waited. The silence of the hotel room felt heavy, like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I wondered what Grant was doing. Was he sitting on a couch next to her right now? Was she texting Ethan while Grant watched television? At 2:14 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Meet me tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Juniper and Ash Cafe on 4th Street. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I arrived at Juniper and Ash at 7:45. It was a trendy spot with exposed brick walls and the smell of overpriced espresso. I chose a table in the back corner, facing the door. I ordered a black coffee and waited. At 8 o'clock exactly, Grant walked in. I recognized him immediately from the file, though he looked older than his photo. He was wearing a rumpled gray sweater and jeans. His face was pale, unshaven, and his eyes had the hollow, haunted look of a man who had just watched his world burn down. He scanned the room. Our eyes met. There was a flicker of recognition, a shared understanding of the wreckage we were standing in. He walked over and sat down. He didn't say hello. He didn't order a coffee. He placed his hands on the table, and I saw that they were trembling. She told me she was at a networking dinner, Grant said, his voice rough, like he'd been screaming or smoking all night. She said it was for the city contract. She was, I said softly. Just not the way you thought. Grant looked at me. You're the wife. I am the wife, I confirmed. How long, he asked. I found out 2 days ago. But looking at the financials, it's been going on for at least 10 months. Grant let out a short, bitter laugh. He ran a hand over his face. 10 months? God, that explains so much. The password changes on her phone, the late nights, working on proposals, the way she started buying expensive lingerie that I never saw her wear. He looked up at me, his eyes wet but angry. Who is he? Your husband, Ethan Pierce, I said. He works in sales. He thinks he's a mastermind. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. I slid it across the table. I'm not here to talk about their feelings, Grant. I'm here to talk about the money. Because that's what's going to hurt us the most. Grant opened the folder. He looked at the spreadsheet I had compiled, the transfers from our joint account, the dates, the amounts. His finger traced the line for Vale Orchard Consulting. Vale Orchard, he muttered. She told me that was her side hustle. She said she was doing freelance consulting for small businesses. She said the money was coming from clients. The client is my husband, I said. He has transferred $25,000 to that LLC in the last 10 months. Grant stopped at a specific date on the spreadsheet. August 15th. A transfer of $5,000. His face went gray. He looked like he was going to be sick. What is it? I asked. August 15th, Grant whispered. That was the day she put the deposit down on a new apartment. She told me it was an investment property. She said she wanted to buy a studio to rent out, to build passive income for our future. She used my savings for the closing costs, but she said she covered the deposit with her bonus. He looked at me, horror dawning on his face. It wasn't a bonus. Your husband paid for the apartment she's going to leave me for. The cruelty of it hung in the air between us. They weren't just cheating. They were using us to fund their escape. Ethan was using my money to build a life with Marissa. And Marissa was using Grant's savings to secure the real estate. We were the financiers of our own destruction. Grant closed the folder. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his shaking hands. I'm an auditor, he said. I spend my life finding hidden assets for corporations. I track embezzlement. And I missed this. I missed it in my own house. You trusted her, I said. We're not stupid, Grant. We were just in love. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. He looked at me with a new intensity. What do you want, Elena? You didn't come here just to show me this. You want something. I want to stop them, I said. I'm filing for divorce, obviously. But it's more than that. Marissa is currently auditing my project at Northline Strategies. She's using her relationship with Ethan to infiltrate my company. I need to prove the fraud before they destroy my career. Grant leaned back. You want to destroy them. I want the truth, I corrected. I want to expose the financial web they've built. I want my money back. And I want them to face the consequences of fraud. Grant looked out the window for a long moment. When he turned back, his expression had hardened. The heartbroken fiancé was receding, and the forensic auditor was stepping forward. I don't mind a dirty war, Grant said. I don't want to key his car or post photos on Facebook. That's beneath me. But I want them to fall. I want them to fall so hard they can never climb back up. Agreed, I said. We do this by the book. Legal. Financial. Irrefutable. I can track the money on her end, Grant said. I have access to her home computer. I know her passwords, or I can guess them. If money flowed from your husband to her LLC, it had to go somewhere else. Money always leaves a trail. Good, I said. My lawyer is handling the divorce and the asset freeze. But we need to connect Marissa to the corruption at Northline. She didn't get that consulting gig on her own. Ethan doesn't have the authority to hire external auditors for the city. Grant's eyes narrowed. That reminds me, about 3 months ago, we were at a dinner party. Marissa had too much wine. She was bragging about her big break. She said she had a guardian angel. A guardian angel? Yeah. She said she had someone on the inside at Northline who was going to fast-track her. I thought she meant you, or maybe your husband. It wasn't me, I said. And Ethan isn't high enough up the ladder to fast-track a city contract. She described him, Grant said. She said he was an old silver fox who loved sailing. She said they met at a charity gala last year, and he took a liking to her ambition. My blood ran cold. Asterisk silver hair. Sailing, asterisk, did she say his name? I asked, my voice tight. No, Grant said. But she said he joked that he was the captain of the ship and she was his first mate. I felt the room spin. That was exactly how my boss, Marcus Thorne, the senior vice president of operations, described himself. He had a sailboat docked at the marina. He was 60 years old with silver hair and a reputation for mentoring young, attractive women. It wasn't just Ethan. Ethan was the pawn. Ethan was the wallet. But Marcus Thorne, my direct superior, the man I had trusted with my career for 5 years, was the one who opened the gate. My boss, I whispered. She is sleeping with my husband, and she is being protected by my boss. Grant reached across the table. He didn't touch my hand, but he tapped the folder firmly. Then we have a bigger problem than a divorce, Grant said. If your boss is involved, they're running a kickback scheme. Ethan funnels money to her LLC. She gets the contract. Your boss approves it. They all get a cut of the city grant. And I am the patsy, I realized. I'm the one signing the operational checks. If the audit finds fraud, Marcus will claim ignorance. Marissa will claim she was just a consultant. And I will go to prison. I looked at Grant. For the first time in 2 days, I didn't feel alone. I felt dangerous. We need a pact, I said. Name it, Grant replied. I handle the legal side, I said. I'll file the divorce motions that force Ethan to declare his assets. That will put pressure on them. You use your skills to trace the flow of funds from her LLC. Find out where the money goes after it hits her account. If any of it goes back to Marcus Thorne or to an offshore account, we have them on federal charges. Grant nodded. He took a sip of my black coffee, not even realizing it wasn't his. I'm in, he said. I'll go home tonight and play the role of the loving fiancé. I'll let her think she's safe. And while she's sleeping, I'll clone her hard drive. Be careful, I said. If they realize we're working together, they'll destroy evidence. They won't know, Grant said. He stood up, buttoning his coat. He looked taller than he had when he walked in. They think you're a scorned wife, and I'm a clueless boyfriend. They think they're the smartest people in the room. He looked down at me, and a grim smile touched his lips. They forgot that we are the ones who do the math. Go get 'em, Grant, I said. You too, Elena. He walked out of the cafe and into the morning sun. I watched him go. I felt a strange sense of kinship with this stranger. We were the collateral damage in someone else's love story, but we were about to become the authors of their tragedy. I picked up my phone. I had a meeting with Diane to prepare for. And now I had a new name to add to the kill list, Marcus Thorne. The circle was complete. And I was going to burn it all down. The fluorescent lights of Diane Carver's conference room seemed to hum with a frequency that only dogs and desperate women could hear. On the polished mahogany table lay a single sheet of paper that Diane had slid across to me with the gravity of a coroner pulling back a sheet. This, Diane said, tapping the document with a manicured fingernail, is a problem. I looked down. It was a loan addendum for a line of credit attached to our home equity. The amount was $50,000. The date was 3 weeks ago. And at the bottom right, next to the date, was my signature. I did not sign this, I said, my voice flat. I didn't feel the spike of panic I might have felt 3 days ago. Now, I only felt the cold calculation of an auditor. I have not authorized any equity withdrawal. I know you didn't, Diane said. Because on that day, you were in a deposition for the Northline merger all morning. But the bank has a digital certificate saying you did. It was an electronic signature via a secure portal. Ethan. He had not just cheated. He had committed a felony. He had logged in as me, clicked the box that said I accept, and typed my name. He had stolen my identity to fund his future with Marissa. He thinks he's clever, I said. He thinks because it's digital, it's invisible. I pulled out my laptop, right there in the conference room. I didn't ask for permission. I logged into our bank's secure message center. Navigated to the security tab. What are you doing? Diane asked, watching me with approval. I'm requesting the access log for the signature event, I said, typing rapidly. Every digital signature captures an IP address and a device ID. It's federal law for banking compliance. I hit enter. The report auto-generated within 30 seconds. I spun the laptop around so Diane could see. Device ID, iPad Pro 12.9-inch. Name, Ethan's iPad. He signed my name using his own device, I said. He didn't even bother to use a VPN or a public computer. He was sitting on our couch, probably while I was making dinner or working late. And he stole $50,000 of our equity. Diane smiled. It was a shark smile. That's not just grounds for divorce, Elena. That is fraud. That is identity theft. We can use this to invalidate the debt assignment, meaning he owes that $50,000 entirely, not you. And we can use it as leverage to force a settlement. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a secure message from Ronan, the investigator. I opened it. There was no text, just a series of high-resolution photographs taken from a long lens. The first photo showed Ethan and Marissa standing in the parking lot of a diner on the outskirts of the city. They looked tense. Marissa was smoking a cigarette, something I had never seen her do. The second photo showed a third person joining them. He was a heavy-set man in a cheap suit, carrying a thick briefcase. I showed the phone to Diane. Who is that? Diane adjusted her glasses. She squinted at the man's face. Then she let out a short, sharp laugh. That, she said, is Barry the Eraser Gage. He is a credit broker. He specializes in what they politely call distressed asset management. In reality, he helps people hide debt or move bad loans into shell companies so they don't show up on credit reports during a background check. Why would they need him? I asked. Because they're cleaning house, Diane explained. They're trying to wash their financial records before the divorce filing hits. Ethan knows I'll subpoena his credit report. He's trying to move that $50,000 debt, and probably other debts I don't know about, off his personal ledger and into an LLC where he thinks I can't look. Vale Orchard Consulting, I whispered. Exactly, Diane said. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Grant. I picked up the call immediately. Grant, tell me you found something. I found the river, Grant said, his voice breathless. The sound of keyboard clacking was audible in the background. I cloned her hard drive last night while she was sleeping. Elena, the money trail is huge. How huge? Vale Orchard Consulting is not just receiving money from Ethan, Grant said. I found a second income stream last month. $40,000 came in from a company called Civic Horizons LLC. I don't know that name, I said. Neither did I, Grant replied. So I dug. Civic Horizons is a registered vendor for the city. They provide logistical support. But here's the kicker. Their registered address is the same suite number as the intermediary firm handling the Urban Development Initiative. The blood drained from my face. Wait, I said, my hand gripping the phone tight. Are you telling me the money is coming from the city project? It's a kickback loop, Grant said, his voice dropping to a whisper. The city pays the intermediary. The intermediary pays Civic Horizons. Civic Horizons pays Marissa's firm, Vale Orchard. And Marissa pays Ethan back. Or they save it. It's bribery, Elena. They are funneling public funds out of the project you are managing. I closed my eyes. The picture finally snapped into focus. It was horrifyingly perfect. Marissa was not just a mistress. She was a conduit. She was the bagman. And I was the shield. I was the chief operating officer. I held the files. I signed the oversight reports. If this money laundering scheme was discovered, Ethan and Marissa would claim they were just low-level consultants. They would point the finger at the person with the fiduciary responsibility. They would point the finger at me. Ethan had not just fallen out of love with me. He was actively setting me up to take the fall for a federal crime. That was why he handed her the envelope with the wax seal. It wasn't a love letter. It was likely the countersigned vendor agreement that authorized the flow of funds. Elena? Grant asked. Are you there? I am here, I said, my voice trembling with a rage so cold it felt like ice water in my veins. Grant, send me the file. Send me everything. The bank transfers. The dates. The Civic Horizons connection. Sending it now, he said. What are you going to do? I'm going to cut the rope, I said. And I'm going to let them fall. I hung up and looked at Diane. We have to move fast. This isn't just a divorce anymore. This is a RICO case waiting to happen. If I don't report this, I'm an accomplice. Diane nodded, her face grim. If you go to the police now, the investigation will freeze all assets, including yours. You'll be stuck in legal limbo for years. We need to secure your exit from the marriage first. How? Mediation, Diane said. We have the mediation session scheduled for Friday. We push hard. We use the threat of the fraud, without revealing we know the full extent of the criminal kickback, to force him to sign a settlement. We get him to sign a document stating clearly that you have no involvement, knowledge, or financial interest in Vale Orchard Consulting. He will sign it, I said. He's desperate to keep the company secret. Exactly, Diane said. We use his greed against him. We get the separation of assets. Once the ink is dry and you are legally severed from his debts and his LLC, then we drop the hammer. And Northline? I asked. I can't sit on this. If the city finds out before I tell them, I'm finished. You file an internal compliance report, Diane instructed. Today. But you do it carefully. You report suspicious activity involving a vendor. You do not name Ethan. You name Marissa and Vale Orchard. You stick to the facts found in the public domain and the company server. You protect your license. I spent the next 2 hours in Diane's office, drafting the report. It was a masterpiece of corporate self-defense. I detailed the unauthorized login. I detailed the conflict of interest regarding Marissa Vale. I detailed the anomaly in the vendor payments Grant had found. I submitted it through Northline's anonymous whistleblower portal, but I kept a time-stamped copy for my personal records. By the time I left Diane's office, it was late afternoon. The city was gray, drizzling rain. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. My phone chimed. A text from Ethan. Please, Elena, I know you are meeting with lawyers. You don't have to do this. I will give you whatever you want. I will sign the house over to you. I will sign the cars. Just please do not send anything to Northline. We can work this out. I stared at the screen. He was terrified. He wasn't worried about losing me. He wasn't worried about losing our marriage. He was terrified of Northline. That confirmed everything. The company was the weak point. If Northline found out, the kickback scheme would collapse and he would go to prison. He was trying to buy my silence with the house he had already mortgaged behind my back. I felt a surge of disgust so potent I almost retched. But I pushed it down. I needed him to feel safe for just 48 more hours. I needed him to walk into that mediation room thinking he could still maneuver. I typed a reply, "We will discuss the settlement at mediation on Friday." He replied instantly, "Can I see you, please? Just 5 minutes. I need to explain the context before you sign anything. Meet me after the mediation. Please just hear me out." I looked at the phone. A face-to-face meeting. It was risky, but it was also an opportunity. If he was desperate, he would talk. And if he talked, I could get a confession on tape that would bury him if the paperwork failed. I typed, "Friday 6 p.m., the plaza behind the mediation center. 10 minutes. "Thank you," he replied. "Thank you, baby. You won't regret it." I put the phone away. I walked through the rain toward my car. I had the evidence of the forgery. I had the evidence of the kickback. I had the cooperation of the other victim. And now I had a date with my husband to watch him beg. Friday was going to be the end of the world for Ethan Pierce. But for me, it was going to be the first day of my life. I unlocked my car door and sat in the driver's seat, listening to the rain hammer against the roof. I opened the file Grant had sent me on my phone. I scrolled through the bank transfers one last time. Civic Horizons to Vale Orchard, $40,000. Vale Orchard to Ethan Pierce, $10,000. He sold me out for $10,000 a month. That was the price of my loyalty. That was the price of 7 years of marriage. He had appraised me, depreciated me, and sold me off like a used asset. I started the engine. The windshield wipers sliced back and forth, clearing the view. "Okay, Ethan," I said to the empty car. "Let's make a deal." The mediation center was a beige building that smelled of stale coffee and expensive compromise. It was Switzerland for people who wanted to destroy each other but didn't want to pay for a jury trial. The conference room was windowless, featuring a long oval table designed to keep combatants at a safe distance. I sat on one side, flanked by Diane Carver and Ronan. On the other side sat Ethan. He was wearing a soft gray sweater, not a suit. It was a calculated choice. He was trying to look vulnerable, trying to look like the wounded husband who had been neglected by his ambitious, cold-hearted wife. Next to him was his lawyer, Caleb Norton. I knew Caleb, a flashy attorney who specialized in high-conflict divorces, usually representing the spouse who wanted a payout. He had a smile that looked like it had been sharpened with a file. "Let us begin," the mediator, retired judge named Mr. Henderson, said softly. "The goal today is an amicable separation of assets and a dissolution of the marriage." Caleb leaned forward, clasping his hands. "Your Honor, if I may call you that, my client is heartbroken. This is not about assets for him. This is about a marriage that failed because of abandonment. Mrs. Lee has been married to her job for 5 years. Ethan sought comfort because he was lonely. We believe that creates a context for spousal support. Ethan supported her rise to the C-suite. He sacrificed his own career ambitions to manage their home. I felt a vein throb in my temple. Manage the home. He hadn't unloaded the dishwasher in 3 years. Diane didn't look up from her notes. She waited for Caleb to finish his speech about Ethan's emotional suffering. Then she adjusted her glasses and opened the thick binder in front of her. "Are you finished?" Diane asked. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a scalpel. Caleb blinked. "We are establishing the narrative." "The narrative is irrelevant," Diane said. "The math is what matters." She slid a single sheet of paper across the table, then another, then another. She laid them out like tarot cards of doom. "Exhibit A," Diane said, "bank records showing transfers totaling $25,000 to Vale Orchard Consulting over the last 10 months. Exhibit B, photographs of Ethan Pierce and Marissa Vale, the owner of said LLC, at the Hawthorne Room 3 days ago. Exhibit C, a flight confirmation for Ethan's mother, proving she was in Florida when Ethan claimed he was taking her to a doctor here in the city." Ethan's face did not move, but his hands tightened on the armrests of his chair. "And finally," Diane said, sliding the last document forward with a heavy thud. "Exhibit D, a loan addendum for $50,000 drawn against the marital home equity. Digitally signed by Elena Lee. But according to the IP log provided by the bank, the signature was executed on an iPad registered to Ethan Pierce at a time when Elena was in a recorded deposition." The room went silent. The air conditioning hummed, sounding like a distant engine. Caleb Norton picked up the loan document. He looked at the IP log, then he looked at Ethan. The sharpened smile vanished. Lawyers can handle adultery. They can handle neglect. But they hate it when their clients lie to them about felonies. This is... Caleb started, then cleared his throat. This is a misunderstanding. The funds were used for household improvements. There were no improvements, Diane said. The money went to Vale Orchard Consulting. We have the trace. Ethan spoke up then, his voice shaky, pitching for sympathy. It was an investment, Elena. I was trying to build something for us. I wanted to surprise you with a passive income stream so you could quit that stressful job. I did it for you. He looked at me, his eyes wide and wet. He actually summoned tears. I was just so lonely, Elena. You were always at the office. Marissa, she listened to me. She made me feel like I mattered. But I still love you. We can fix this. Just give me a chance to make the money back. It was a good performance. If I hadn't seen him laughing with her at the restaurant, I might have felt a twinge of guilt. But I had seen the envelope. I leaned forward. I placed my elbows on the table and looked him directly in the eyes. I don't care about the cheating, Ethan, I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly so. I don't even care about the loneliness. I just have one question. Ethan sniffled, looking hopeful. What? Anything? The wax-sealed envelope, I said. The one you slid across the table to her at the Hawthorne room. What was inside it? Ethan froze. The tears stopped instantly. His face went blank, stripped of its mask. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. It was just a birthday card. It was a document, I said. And she looked at it like it was a check. Was it a contract, Ethan? A vendor agreement for the city project? At the mention of vendor agreement, Caleb Norton's head snapped toward his client. Ethan, Caleb said, his voice dropping an octave. You told me Vale Orchard was a hobby business. Is there a contract involved? It's nothing, Ethan said, his voice rising in panic. She's crazy. She's paranoid. Vale Orchard Consulting, Diane interrupted, reading from a new sheet. Received $40,000 from a city intermediary last month, and $10,000 of that came back to you. That is not a hobby, Mr. Norton. That is a kickback scheme. And your client forged my client's signature to fund the initial buy-in. Caleb Norton closed his folder. He sat back in his chair and looked at Ethan with pure disgust. He realized he was sitting next to a radioactive isotope. If this went to court, Caleb wouldn't just lose, he would be dragged into a fraud investigation. We're taking a recess, Caleb said sharply. No recess, Diane said. We settle this now, or we walk out of here and go straight to the district attorney with the forgery evidence. And then we go to Northline Strategies with the compliance report. Ethan turned pale. No, you can't go to Northline, Elena. Please, you'll ruin me. You ruined yourself, I said. Diane pushed the settlement agreement forward. Here is the offer. We divide the assets 50-50, excluding the debt you incurred fraudulently. You take full responsibility for the $50,000 loan. You pay back the $25,000 of marital funds you siphoned to the mistress. And most importantly, you sign this addendum stating clearly that Elena Lee has no ownership, knowledge, or involvement in Vale Orchard Consulting. I can't pay that back right now, Ethan whispered. I don't have the liquidity. Then you take it out of your share of the house equity, Diane said ruthlessly. Sign the paper, Ethan. Or Elena makes the call to the bank fraud department in 5 minutes. Ethan looked at Caleb for help. Caleb just stared at the wall, refusing to make eye contact. He was done. Ethan picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so badly the tip tapped against the paper. He read the terms. He stopped at the last page. I want a non-disclosure agreement, he said suddenly. He looked up, a spark of desperation in his eyes. I'll sign everything. I'll take the debt. But I want a full NDA. Elena cannot talk about the marriage, the divorce, or Vale Orchard Consulting to anyone, including Northline. He was trying to plug the leak. He knew that if I talked, his scheme with Marissa and my boss, Marcus Thorne, would collapse. Absolutely not, I said. It's standard. Ethan argued. High-net-worth divorces always have NDAs. I will agree to privacy regarding our personal life, I said. I will not tell people you snore. I will not tell people you cried today. But I will not sign an NDA that covers illegal financial activity or corporate compliance. I will not let you use a divorce settlement to gag me from reporting a crime that affects my license. That's a deal breaker, Ethan said, trying to sound tough. Diane reached for her phone. Okay, deal breaker accepted. I am dialing the fraud unit. She started to type. Wait, Ethan screamed. He lunged across the table to stop her hand. Caleb grabbed him by the shoulder and slammed him back into his chair. Control yourself, Caleb hissed. You have no leverage, Ethan. None. Sign the damn paper before she has you arrested. Ethan slumped in his chair. He looked small, like a child who had been caught. He quickly redlined the document, initialed the changes, and slid it over. Ethan signed. He signed the asset division. He signed the debt admission. And he signed the affidavit declaring me innocent of his business dealings. It was done. The mediator notarized the signatures with a stamp that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet room. We are adjourned, the mediator said. Ethan stood up. He looked at me one last time. There was no love left in his eyes. Only fear and a strange, lingering resentment. You won, he said softly. I hope it keeps you warm at night. It won't keep me warm, I said. But it will keep me free. He walked out, followed by a furious-looking Caleb. I sat there for a moment, letting the adrenaline drain out of my system. I felt lightheaded. I had severed the limb to save the body. I was divorced. I was safe from his debt. I had the affidavit that would shield me from the inevitable fallout of the kickback scheme. Good work, Diane said, packing up her binder. He folded. He was terrified of Northline, I said. That confirms it. The real danger isn't the divorce. It is the company. I stood up and smoothed my skirt. I walked out into the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I took a deep breath, the first full lungful of air I had taken in days. I reached into my bag to turn my phone back on. It buzzed immediately in my hand. A call. It wasn't Grant. It wasn't my assistant. It was the direct line for the Northline Strategies executive office. I answered. This is Elena. Elena. The voice on the other end was sharp, clipped. It was the head of human resources. We need you to come to the third-floor conference room immediately. The compliance committee is in session. I'm out of the office, I said, checking my watch. It was 4:30. I can be there in 20 minutes. Make it 15, the voice said. And Elena, bring your company laptop. And your badge. The line went dead. My stomach dropped through the floor. They didn't ask you to bring your badge unless they were planning to take it away. Diane looked at me, seeing the color drain from my face. What is it? They called me in, I said. Compliance. They want my badge. They're moving fast, Diane said. Ethan or Marissa must have triggered something. Or Marcus Thorne is making his move to frame you before you can expose him. I have the affidavit, I said, clutching the folder with the fresh ink. I have the proof he acted alone. Go, Diane said. Do not say anything without the document in front of you. And remember, you are the whistleblower, not the suspect. Act like it. I ran to the elevator. The victory in the mediation room evaporated. I had won the battle against my husband, but the war for my life was just starting. The elevator ride to the third floor took exactly 12 seconds. I counted them. In the corporate world, silence is usually a precursor to noise. And the silence inside that metal box was heavy with the static of impending disaster. I clutched my laptop bag and the file folder containing the settlement agreement Ethan had signed less than an hour ago. When the doors slid open, the hallway was empty. The administrative assistants were gone for the day. The only light came from the glass-walled conference room at the end of the corridor. I walked toward it. I did not hurry. I adjusted my blazer, checked my badge, and pushed the door open. 3 people were waiting for me. Linda from Human Resources, a woman who usually smiled but currently looked like an undertaker. The general counsel for Northline, a man named Robert Vance, whom I had worked with for 5 years. And a stranger, a man in a dark suit with no tie, sitting in the corner with a notepad. Sit down, Elena, Linda said. She didn't offer me water. I sat. I placed my laptop on the table but did not open it. I was told this is a compliance matter. It is, Robert Vance said. He slid a folder across the polished table. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, we received an anonymous whistleblower complaint. The complaint alleges that you have been leaking proprietary data regarding the Urban Development Initiative to unauthorized third parties, specifically to a firm called Vale Orchard Consulting. I felt a cold flash of anger, but I kept my face immobile. It was not a random whistleblower. It was Ethan. Or Marissa. They were trying to strike first. They knew I was closing in, so they decided to burn my reputation to discredit me. The complaint is false, I said. We have logs, Robert said, tapping a stack of papers. There was a remote login to the secure financial server at 3:14 in the morning on Tuesday. That login used your credentials, Elena. The user downloaded the projected bid variances. 2 days later, those variances appeared in a proposal submitted by Vale Orchard Consulting. He looked at me with disappointment. You are the chief operating officer. You know that sharing bid data is immediate grounds for termination and potential litigation. I reached into my bag. I pulled out the flash drive Marcus from security had given me and the printed report I had prepared days ago. I am aware of the login, I said, my voice steady. I was alerted to it immediately because I have two-factor authentication on my personal devices, and I did not receive a prompt that night. That login did not come from my laptop. It came from a spoofed IP address. I slid my own report across the table. This is an internal security assessment provided by Marcus. In it, I continued, it confirms that the device used to access the server was not company-issued. It was an external device using a VPN. Furthermore, here is my timeline. At 3:14 in the morning on Tuesday, I was in a hotel room at the Rivergate Hotel. The hotel Wi-Fi logs, which I have subpoenaed for my own divorce proceedings, show my devices were offline. Robert picked up the report. He scanned it, his eyebrows knit together. Divorce proceedings? Linda asked, her voice softening slightly. That brings me to the second point, I said. You mentioned Vale Orchard Consulting. The anonymous tip likely failed to mention that the principal of that firm, Marissa Vale, is currently in a relationship with my husband, Ethan Pierce. The room went deadly silent. The stranger in the corner stopped writing and looked up. I am currently in the process of a divorce, I said. I signed the asset separation agreement 45 minutes ago. I formally disclosed this conflict of interest in a report I submitted to the anonymous portal yesterday. If you check your backlog, you will find it. Robert looked at Linda. Check the portal. Linda typed furiously on her laptop. A moment later, she nodded. It is here. Submitted yesterday at 4:05 in the afternoon. Subject: vendor irregularities and personal conflict of interest. I leaned back. I am not the leak, Robert. I am the target. My husband and his partner are trying to frame me because I discovered they were using his connection to me to bid on city contracts. Robert looked relieved, but only for a moment. He reached into his folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. If that is true, Elena, then explain this. He placed the document in front of me. It was a contract addendum. It authorized an expedited payment of $40,000 to a subcontractor for logistical support. At the bottom of the page was my signature. It was not a digital block. It looked like a wet signature written in blue ink. It had the distinct loop of the L that I had perfected over years of signing checks. This was sent to the city comptroller 3 days ago, Robert said. It authorized funds that were eventually routed to Vale Orchard Consulting. If you didn't sign it, who did? My hands went cold. Ethan. He had access to my home office. He had access to old contracts. He must have scanned my signature, lifted it in Photoshop, and placed it on this document. I did not sign this, I said. I have never seen this vendor name before. It looks like your signature, Robert said. And the city accepted it. It is a forgery, I stated. And I can prove a pattern of behavior. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the email Diane had prepared for this exact moment. My attorney, Diane Carver, is sending you a file right now, I said. It contains a sworn affidavit from a forensic document examiner regarding a bank loan taken out in my name 3 weeks ago. My husband, Ethan Pierce, forged my signature to steal $50,000 of our home equity. He admitted to this in mediation today. The signed admission of guilt is included in the file. I looked Robert in the eye. He has forged my signature to steal from me. Now he is forging my signature to steal from the company. If you fire me, you are firing the whistleblower and protecting the fraudster. Robert's phone pinged. He looked at the email Diane had just sent. He read the admission of guilt from the mediation. He took a deep breath and rubbed his temples. This is a mess, Elena. A massive liability mess. I know, I said. That is why I am helping you clean it up. The stranger in the corner stood up. He walked to the table. I am David Sear, he said. I am from Arborline Compliance. The board brought us in an hour ago. Arborline. They were the cleaners. The ones companies called when they needed to bury a scandal or prosecute an executive. Mrs. Lee, David said. Your defense is compelling. The timeline regarding the bank forgery creates strong reasonable doubt regarding this contract. Until we can forensically verify that the signature on the city contract is a digital manipulation, we cannot have you in the building. The risk is too high. I understand. We are placing you on administrative leave, with full pay, effective immediately, David said. Your access to the servers will be revoked. You will work remotely on non-sensitive tasks only. We will seize your company laptop for forensic analysis. You can have it, I said, pushing the laptop forward. You will find nothing but work. We will also need to interview your husband, Robert added. He is not my husband anymore, I said, standing up, legally speaking. And good luck getting him to talk. He is likely destroying evidence as we speak. I handed over my badge. It felt like surrendering a weapon. I walked out of the conference room, my head high, but my insides were trembling. I was suspended. I was a suspect. They believed me, but they didn't trust me. I walked out of the building and into the cool evening air. The sun had set. The city lights were blurring in the damp air. My personal phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. This is Elena. You think you're so smart? The voice hissed. It was Ethan. He sounded drunk or manic or both. You think you can corner me? He shouted. I signed your stupid paper, Elena. I gave you the house. I gave you everything. And you still sent the dogs after me. Marissa just got a call from the city. They're pausing the contract. I didn't send anyone, Ethan, I said, pressing the record button on my screen. You sent a forged contract to the city. You did that. I did what I had to do, he screamed. We were so close. We were going to be set for life. And you just had to look at the numbers. You always have to look at the numbers. You are ruining my future, Elena. You are burning everything down because you are jealous. I am not jealous, I said calmly. I am compliant. Watch your back, he spat. You think you're safe because you have a lawyer? You have no idea what is coming. The line clicked dead. I saved the recording immediately. I emailed it to Diane and to David Sear at Arborline. Subject: Threat from suspect regarding ongoing investigation. That call was a mistake. He had just admitted to a motive. He had admitted the contract was paused. He was panicking. My phone buzzed again. A text from Ronan. Video file attached. I opened it. The video was grainy, taken from a distance in a parking lot. It showed Ethan and Marissa standing next to her red Mercedes. Ethan was waving his arms, shouting. Marissa was shoving him away. I turned up the volume. The wind carried their voices. You said she was stupid. Marissa screamed. You said she was too busy to notice. You said she wouldn't dare go to the company because she was scared of losing her job. She tricked me. Ethan yelled back. She set me up at the mediation. You idiot. Marissa shrieked. My name is on the LLC. If they trace the money, I go to jail, not you. You fix this, Ethan. You fix this, or I swear to God I will tell them everything. She got in her car and slammed the door. Ethan was left standing there, kicking the tire of his sedan. I watched the video twice. Marissa was cracking. She realized that Ethan had sold her a lie. The lie that I was a passive, ignorant wife who would quietly sign whatever was put in front of her. She realized she was the one with her name on the bank accounts receiving the stolen funds. Grant was right. They were turning on each other. I dialed Grant. It's time, I said when he answered. I saw the alert, Grant said. Marissa's accounts just got flagged. She's trying to move money out of the LLC. Let her try, I said. Northline suspended me pending investigation. They have brought in Arborline. That's good, Grant said. Arbor Line is ruthless. If they find the kickback, they will prosecute. They have a forged document with my signature on it, I said. Ethan tried to frame me for the vendor authorization. I have the trace, Grant said. I can prove the money went from that vendor to Civic Horizons and then to Vale Orchard. The money flow proves you didn't benefit. Why would you forge a document to send money to your husband's mistress? I know, I said. But we need to make it official. We need to stop playing defense. What do you want to do? We filed a formal complaint, I said. Not anonymous. Not internal. We file a joint complaint with the City Oversight Committee. You, as the auditor who found the irregularity. Me, as the Northline executive who is identity theft. We put our names on it. We blow the whistle so loud they can hear it in the next state. If we do that, Grant warned, there is no going back. The city will freeze the entire project. Your company will lose the contract. You might never work in this town again. I looked up at the Northline building. My office was dark. I don't care about the job anymore, Grant, I said. I care about the truth. Ethan said I was ruining his future. I want to make sure I finish the job. Write the draft, Grant said. I will sign it. Meet me at my lawyer's office in an hour, I said. We are going to end this tonight. I got into my car. The threat from Ethan still echoed in my ears. You have no idea what is coming. He was wrong. I knew exactly what was coming. The truth was coming. And unlike his lies, the truth did not need a wax seal to be valid. It just needed to be heard. I put the car in gear and drove into the night, ready to drop the bomb that would clear the rubble of my life. The submission of the formal complaint was not a dramatic event. There was no cinematic music, no slow motion walk down a hallway. It was just the click of a mouse button at 9 o'clock in the morning. I sat in Diane Carver's conference room, my laptop open on the mahogany table next to me. Grant sat with his own device. We counted down. 3, 2, 1, send. My report went to the Northline Strategies Ethics Committee and the City Oversight Board. It was titled Formal Complaint Regarding Vendor Fraud and Internal Corruption. I had stripped every ounce of emotion from the document. No mentions of betrayal, heartbreak, or the woman in the red dress. Only facts, IP logs, bank transfer records provided by Grant, the affidavit of forgery regarding the bank loan, the timestamps of the unauthorized server access. Grant submitted his own filing simultaneously. He sent a formal request to the bank holding his and Marissa's joint assets, flagging them for suspicious activity due to a pending separation suit. He also filed a report with the State Accountancy Board regarding the irregularities in Vale Orchard Consulting. It is done, Grant said, closing his laptop. She is locked out. If she tries to buy a cup of coffee this morning, her card will decline. Now we wait for the blast, I said. We did not have to wait long. At